Hello? Thing on? Yeah. I'm going to just assume that it is. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the hearing of Government Reform Committee for the House today, March 16th, Wednesday, 9 a.m., room 309. Welcome back, everybody, to our first in-person hearing. So glad you're all braved the storm and the metered parking to join us here today. And of course, we appreciate everybody still using Zoom, and we're very happy to keep it going so our neighbor islanders in particular can be a part of the conversation. With that, we'll start off with Senate Bill 3164, Senate Draft 1. First up, Campaign Spending Commission. We have written testimony in opposition. Next up, Sandy Ma, Executive Director, Common Cause Hawaii. We have written testimony.
She's there.
She is?
Good morning.
Oh, there she is.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Sandy Ma for Common Cause Hawaii. We support SB 3164. This bill is to trace back to the original source donations that will impact our elections. We understand this is a complex bill, and we hope that you will move this bill along. We are currently working with the Campaign Spending Commission to try to modify this bill. And before we propose any changes to this bill, we like to try to get agreement from the Campaign Spending Commission. So apologies for not having proposed amendments ready and available for this committee, but we are trying to work with the Campaign Spending Commission. Thank you, and we hope you will keep this bill alive. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Sandy. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I've got a long way to go. So Senate Bill 3164, we have Aaron McKean, Legal Counsel, Campaign Legal Center.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Aaron McKean, and I am Legal Counsel with the Campaign Legal Center. And I just want to express our support for the SB 3164 SD1 because it would ensure that Hawaii voters have more information about the wealthy special interests who spend money in Hawaii elections and are trying to influence Hawaiian voters, trying to influence their votes. We stand on our written testimony and are available for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Appreciate your being here today. That's all we have submitted for 3164. Is there anybody on Zoom or the audience who'd like to testify? Seeing none, members, questions of either testifier. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 2300. First up again, Campaign Spending Commission.
Good morning, Chair, members, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We submitted testimony. We submitted comments on this bill, and I'll stand on those comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Aaron, for being here. Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women. Your written testimony and support. Sandy Ma, Common Cause.
Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Sandy Ma for Common Cause Hawaii. We support SB 2300. Care for one's children and dependents should not be a barrier to running for public office. I'm available to answer any questions, and thank you for hearing SB 2300.
Okay, sounds good. Rebecca Gardner, Hawaii State Democratic Party Women's Caucus. Okay, written testimony in support. We have Louisa Duggan from Vote Mama Foundation.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much. Aloha, my name is Louisa Dugan. I'm originally from Kailua Kona, Hawaii, was raised on the Big Island and still consider it my home. I'm here today to speak on behalf of Vote Mama Foundation in strong support of Senate Bill 2300. In 2018, Vote Mama Foundation founder and CEO Luba Gretchen Shirley petitioned the Federal Election Commission and became the first woman to receive federal approval to use her campaign funds for childcare. This groundbreaking decision was approved by a unanimous bipartisan vote. Over 50 federal candidates have since used their campaign funds to pay for childcare, both moms and dads, Democrats and Republicans. However, the ruling on Luba's request does not apply to candidates running for state and local office. Vote Mama Foundation is the only organization working with legislators across the country to introduce legislation to approve the use of campaign funds for dependent care by state and local candidates. We know that the first step to empowering a diverse pipeline of working caregivers to run for office is for candidates to no longer have to consider the cost of dependent care in weighing their decision to run. Our country needs middle and working class representation now more than ever. Campaign funds for dependent care breaks down a critical economic barrier to working caregivers running for office. 14 states, including Hawaii, have introduced campaign funds for childcare legislation just this legislative session. 15 states have passed similar laws allowing the use of campaign funds for childcare. We hope Hawaii will become the 16th. Vote Mama Foundation thanks Senator Kim for her leadership on this legislation. We urge the committee to support Senate Bill 2300. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony. We have Rosemary Muller of AAUW Hilo. Written testimony in support. We've also received written testimony from several individuals, all of whom are in support. Are any of them either in the room or on Zoom would like to testify? Seeing none, we've also received late testimony from Kathleen Algeier, Director for Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks. Okay, written in support. And we have late testimony from Jasmine Slovak, founder of Great Wahine Run. Okay, also written testimony in
Yes,
support.
sorry.
Oh, she here?
Yes. Hi,
Oh, okay.
aloha. Yes, I stand behind our testimony in support of SB 2300. I would like to make further comments that as representatives yourselves, you understand that running for office is a full-time job, and affirm the comments of Common Cause in that this should not be a barrier for working families to represent their communities. So please consider the legacy that you in your leadership positions hold. And I humbly ask for your support of SB 2300. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. That's all we have on 2300. Anybody either on Zoom or the audience who'd like to testify? Seeing none, members' questions of any of the testifiers? Seeing none, we'll move on to 2044. First up, once again, Campaign Spending Commission.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The commission supports this bill. We've been trying to get fines increased for super PACs for a number of years now. And we ask for this committee's support. Other than that, I'll stand on our testimony support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We also have Sandy Ma, Common Cause.
Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Sandy Ma for Common Cause Hawaii. We also support SB 2044, increasing fines against PACs and super PACs. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have also testimony from Lynn Matsuo, individual, written in support, and Jennifer Azuma Trupliak with comments. That's all we've received on 2044. Anybody in the audience or Zoom land who would like to testify? Seeing none, members, questions of the testifiers? Seeing none, let's move on to 2043. First up, again, Campaign Spending Commission.
Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We submitted testimony in support of this bill. This is a housekeeping measure, and I'll stand on those written testimony.
Okay, thank you so much. That's all we have on this measure. Anybody else on Zoom or the audience wishing to testify? Seeing none, members' question of campaign spending. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next bill on the agenda, 3244 SD1. First up, Sandy Ma, Common Cause.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We provided comments on SB 3244. We want everyone to have representation in the redistricting process, and that's why we provided comments on 3244. And we also want to highlight the issue of prison gerrymandering. We want incarcerated people to be counted as of where they are located prior to their incarceration versus their facility where they are incarcerated. This will skew the redistricting reapportionment count if they are counted where they are incarcerated. And so we provided testimony as to this effect. I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you for allowing me to provide comments on this issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Next up, we have testimony from Gerard Silva, individual in opposition. Then we have numerous pieces of late testimony, one from Christopher Dean, Recycle Hawaii and Clean the Pacific. testimony in opposition, and we have numerous testimonies from numerous individuals, all in opposition. Are any of them either on Zoom or in the audience who would like to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, are there questions of, I guess, common cause? No. I have a quick question, Sandy, if you got a second.
Yes, Chair.
No, I took a note of your testimony insofar as incarcerated persons go, but isn't the domicile rule of where one intends to be domiciled and not where they're may actually be at? So in the case of somebody who's in prison in a facility, they don't have an intent to be domiciled within that prison. Wouldn't they be a resident of the area in which they want to be domiciled?
That's an excellent question, Chair. Thank you for that. So for reapportionment, where you are counted by the census, you're counted as of your incarcerated facility. But Department of Public Safety also has a tracking list of where people are incarcerated, their home address as of the date of their incarceration, as of census date. I'm sorry, I don't think I said that very clearly. So as of census date, incarcerated people also provide to Department of Public Safety their home address prior to their incarceration. So both are transmitted to the Census Bureau, their incarceration facility location, and their home address as of the census date. And so for our reapportionment process, we just reapportion people as of their incarcerated facility versus their home address.
Well, is that something that could be fixed for a more narrowly focused measure instead of something that's far sweeping like this, because it includes far more than incarcerated people, obviously?
Yes, so other jurisdictions have passed legislation, or the Reapportionment Commission itself has adopted rules that say we will no longer reapportion incarcerated people as of their facility, but adopt rules to have incarcerated people reapportioned as of their home addresses, which have been provided to the Department of Public Safety. But our Reapportionment Commission decided not to do that. And also, so that could be adopted by legislation to require the Reapportionment Commission to do that in the future.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your comments on that question.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, yes, Vice Chair, please go ahead.
For Sandy Ma, please. Thank you, Sandy. Quick question. It sounds like depending on who you're talking about, you have a different policy desire. You want the incarcerated people counted where their home is before they were incarcerated, but you want the military people counted where they're assigned and not at their home residence. Is that correct? That seems contradictory that we would want one or the other and apply consistently across.
So thank you for that question, Vice Chair. So military people will, for reapportionment processes and US Census data counting are counted here in Hawaii, and then they're extracted out according to the Hawaii State Constitution. So let's just take, for example, an Oklahoma person who is stationed here in Hawaii. So that Oklahoma person who is stationed in Hawaii, military person, is not counted as a US Census in Oklahoma, but is counted as a US Census here in Hawaii, and then is extracted out. So that that Oklahoma person is not reapportioned in Hawaii and is no longer counted here in Hawaii either.
Thank you. I don't like either of these bills. I think they're very bad for neighbor islands, and that we're going to lose House and Senate seats if either of these two go forward. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you so much for your feedback on that. Any other follow-up questions? If not, let's move on to 3254. First up is the Attorney General's office.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Robin Chen, Deputy Attorney General. We have submitted comments on this bill recommending an amendment to the language, and I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate your testimony. We have Scott Nago, Chief Election Officer, with comments on the measure. Sandy Ma, Common Cause Hawaii.
Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Common Cause provides testimony regarding SB 3254, stating that we are concerned about the extraction process of military and their dependents and students in Hawaii who may be silenced in the redistricting process. We don't want a process where certain people are not counted in the reapportionment and redistricting, where other people such as temporary and part-time residents may be counted. And we also again raise the issue of prison gerrymandering. I'm available to answer any questions, and thank you for having Common Cause testify on this issue.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We also have Christopher Dean, Recycle Hawaii and Clean the Pacific. Testimony in opposition. We've also received numerous pieces of late testimonies from individuals, all of whom are in opposition. Are any of them either in the audience or on Zoom who would like to testify? Seeing none, members, any questions of the testifiers? Yes, Representative Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Ma, Common Cause? Are you there still? Sandy?
Yes, sorry, Rep. Board.
Okay,
Yes,
there you are. Sandy, in your objection, was it the process or was it the lack of trust of what they've done in terms of their extraction, or was it a combination?
Thank you for the question, Rep. Ward. Certainly, we are concerned that people are properly and accurately counted in the redistricting and reapportionment process. We want people to be properly counted, as I just said.
What inhibits that?
So we were involved with the redistricting process that is currently being challenged at the Hawaii State Supreme Court, and it is a very complicated process, and having to have information be provided by the U.S. military, and it is not an exact process. And also having U.S. military members have to self-report whether they are, residents of Hawaii or of a different state, and to have their dependents also be extracted out. It is not there is not a precise mechanism to do that. So leads to it could lead to over extraction, or it could lead to under extraction, and it is a difficult process. And we are the only state in the nation that does that. Kansas did that before and has stopped doing that process of extraction. And we only extract military and students, but there are a lot of people who live in Hawaii part-time or temporarily, and we don't extract those individuals. And so it leads for Common Cause to a fairness question. And we do understand the plight of neighbor islands. We want to have a fair balance. But Hawaii is actually the only state that extracts military and students that has an extraction process. And so there is a concern as to having a good process in place. Thank you for that question, Rep. Ward.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, anybody else? If not, thank you so much. And we'll move on to the next measure, 2210, Senate Draft 2. First up, Scott Nago, Chief Election Officer, Office of Elections.
Good morning. The Office of Elections will stand on its written testimony, providing comments, and be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And you're also requesting a delayed effective date of 2024, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Reese Nakamura, Patricia O'Hara, Deputy AGs.
Good morning, Chair and committee members, Deputy Attorney General Reese Nakamura. The department has submitted its comments and we appreciate the consideration of the committee. I will be available here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Reese. We have Sandy Ma, Common Cause Hawaii.
Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Sandy Ma for Common Cause Hawaii. We support SB 2210. We understand the bill has been amended to allow for candidates to provide their own biographies, so to speak. We suggest that, like other states, specifically California and Alaska, candidates be required to pay for their own biographical placements in such a voter information guide. This could lessen the cost burden on the state. We also provided some guidelines to make the voter information guide more fair and neutral. Thank you for allowing Common Cause to testify in support of SB 2210. I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rosemary Muller, individual. Written in support. That's all we have on 2210. Is there anybody in Zoom or the audience who'd like to testify? Seeing none, members' questions. A quick question of Common Cause, if you're still there, Sandy.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, on the provision of having candidates pay for their placement, wouldn't that disadvantage candidates who either, you know, have limited campaign funds or are indigent as opposed to those who are well-funded and can be able to pay not only for their placement, but for more text to be included in their biography?
That's a great question, Chair. Thank you for that. So yes, certainly for candidates using partial public funding of our elections, that could be waived, or you could have a sliding scale, definitely. Thank you.
Great. All right, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to 3226, Senate Draft 2. First up, we have DCAB, Kirby Shaw, Executive Director. With comments on the measure, Scott Nago, Office of Elections.
Good morning. The Office of Elections stands on its written testimony providing comments and will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sandy Ma, Common Cause.
I'm
Go
so
ahead,
sorry, Chair. 3226. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
3226. No worries.
So many bills, I've lost track.
We crammed a lot of stuff on this agenda, but go ahead.
Oh,
Electronic voter guide.
oh yes, we had the same comments as in the prior bill. We do support this bill. Thank you for that, Vice Chair.
Okay.
Sandy Ma for Common Cause Hawaii, we do support this bill. We stand on our written testimony and support, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We have Lake from Craig Harai, Department of Budget and Finance. Noticing ESSER implications. That's all we have on 3226, Senate Draft 2. Is there anybody either in the audience or Zoom who would like to testify on the measure? Seeing none, members, any questions? Seeing none, let's move on to 312, Senate Draft 1. First up is Common Cause Hawaii. Sandy Ma.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Sandy Ma for Common Cause Hawaii. We provided comments supporting the intent of SB 312. We understand that the harm that the 2010 decision Citizens United has caused and allowed the free flow of dark money in our politics. And so we provided comments supporting the intent of SB 312, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's all we have on 312 Senate Draft 1. Anybody in Zoom or the audience wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, any questions? Yes, Wed Mar.
Is anyone from the AG's office or the constitutionality of a symbolic constitutional? Is it, Sandy, do you know what a symbolic constitutional amendment is?
Not exactly, Rep. Ward.
That's what this one says in the bill. It's a symbolic constitutional amendment. And the legal question I was going to ask, can a state statute override a US Supreme Court decision? Or because it's symbolic, it doesn't make any difference? Maybe I should ask the chair this.
Yeah, actually, that's a big fat no. Hence all the WRs on the Senate side, I think, on the measure. So, I was going to ask Sandy this question. It's a good segue to that, Sandy. Isn't passing an amendment that violates the federal constitution and the ruling, although it's well-intentioned, symbolic, kind of creating false hope or false impressions among the electorate that this will actually address the problem of Citizens United? Maybe should the state of Hawaii force another review by the US Supreme Court on this by making it just a flat out constitutional amendment, which would probably trigger a lawsuit?
Chair, the Hawaii State Legislature was the first legislature that passed a resolution seeking a US constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. And so the state was the leading state to ask for a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. And so I think while such a resolution in our Hawaii state constitution would not have any type of effect on the Citizens United decision, I think it's a symbolic gesture to limit dark money in our politics and to limit the free, unlimited spending in our elections. Hence our testimony as supporting the intent.
Shouldn't we force the issue and be stronger than a resolution by simply making it a flat out constitutional amendment, which would force the issue upon the Supreme Court again?
I would certainly support, Common Cause would certainly support public funding of our elections.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, members, on this? Yes, Rep.
Chair,
Ward.
following that, have we ever passed a symbolic constitutional amendment? This is kind of a historical archival sort of question.
Not that I know of.
This is a new one for me too,
Yeah,
so, okay.
but as I said before in my comments, and sorry, apologies, indulgence of the members in the audience, I think to take away the half watered down symbolic and make it a con-am, which if approved by the voters would force the Supreme Court to take up Citizens United again and possibly issue a ruling, which I think everybody thought should have been issued the first time.
So strike the word
They're not.
symbolic in there, Chair.
So
HD1 or whatever.
yes, we will discuss that in the making.
You want to go to the mattresses?
Great
you gotta
minds
go to
think
the
alike,
mattresses.
Representative. Okay, anybody else on this measure? If not, we'll move on to 2138. We don't have any testimony on this measure, members. Anybody in the audience or Zoom would like to testify on this? Compelling need. Okay, if not, what we'll do is we'll move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 3329, Senate Draft 1. And for this measure, I am on subsequent measures, several next measures, I'm going to turn it over to my vice chair to conduct this portion of the hearing.
Chair?
Right back.
Okay, next up, SB 3299, SB1. We have many people in support, beginning with Elizabeth Kent from Commission to Promote Uniform Laws on Zoom. Perhaps not present.
Aloha, thank you for the
Oh, go right
opportunity. Aloha, thank you for the opportunity to be here and present testimony in support of this. I believe that robust public participation builds a strong community, and I'm a big fan of the First Amendment. So I urge you to support this uniform law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. Next up on Zoom, we have Denise Antolini from Malama Pupukea Waimea.
Good morning, Vice Chair Wildberger, Chair McKelvey, and members of the committee. My name is Denise Antolini. My day job, which I love, is teaching law at the University of Hawaii, but I'm testifying in my private capacity as the volunteer president of a nonprofit on the North Shore called Malama Pupukea Waimea. We strongly support this bill because it supports strong participation by the public in all forums of advocacy just a little background. So Hawaii does have an anti-SLAPP law passed in 2002 by the legislature to protect citizens who participate in government from punitive lawsuits by those who are offended by the speech. That 2002 law has not turned out as the legislature intended to be sufficiently protective. And my organization, in fact, tried to use that protection, and the court found that the law was too narrow. So we had a $13 million lawsuit hanging over our heads as we were pursuing which is a very normal public interest lawsuit challenging some permits for development. So what does this bill do? It adopts the proposed Uniform Public Expression Protection Act, which is a very balanced law that provides for an expedited procedure to address SLAPP lawsuits. And it really will put Hawaii in the forefront of this national policy shift. And it's fully in line with the original intent, but it's a much better procedural mechanism. And we strongly urge its adoption. Thank you for the opportunity to testify and welcome any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Antolini. Next up on Zoom, we have Junwok Kim from the ACLU Hawaii.
Good morning, Vice Chair Waldberger, Chair McKelvey, and committee members. My name is Wookie Kim, and I'm here on behalf of the ACLU of Hawaii. We at the ACLU have a strong interest in this bill because freedom of expression is among the core rights protected by both the US and Hawaii constitutions. Recently, however, SLAPPs, which are strategic lawsuits against public participation, have presented an increasingly significant threat against the people's right to freedom of expression, particularly against those people and organizations who are under-resourced or marginalized. And as Professor Antolini just noted, even though Hawaii does currently have an anti-SLAPP law codified at Chapter 634F, it just isn't broad or strong enough to adequately address the problems that SLAPPs pose. And we know this from experience because the lawsuit that Professor Antolini just mentioned, we at the ACLU filed an amicus brief in that lawsuit, among other things, pointing out that the precise conduct that the environmental advocates had engaged in was within the core of the First Amendment protections, and specifically the First Amendment right to petition the government for redress of grievances. Yet, as Professor Antolini just noted, the court found that the existing anti-SLAPP law did not cover the conduct that the environmental advocates had engaged in. And so I think that shows some of the gaps in coverage when it comes to the existing anti-SLAPP law. And as our written testimony and as others' written testimony shows, the Uniform Public Expression Protection Act, which was created by a nonprofit, nonpartisan commission that drew upon the lessons learned by many jurisdictions nationwide, we believe that provides clearer, stronger, and more effective protections for this important right. And so thank you for the opportunity to testify, and we urge the committee to pass this measure.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Next up on Zoom, we have Caitlin Wolf of the Uniform Law Commission.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Wildberger and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. My name is Caitlin Wolf, and I am testifying in strong support of SB 3329 on behalf of the Uniform Law Commission. As you've already heard from several of the testifiers today, this measure is important for Hawaii to consider as a modernization, as an update to your existing anti-SLAPP statute. What the Uniform Law Commission did over the course of a number of years took a deep dive into what was working well with existing anti-SLAPP statutes across the states. About 33 states have them, and looked at what went poorly or where these statutes missed the mark. And the bill before you today, the Uniform Public Expression Protection Act, we believe represents the best of what's out there, the best, strongest protections for individuals who are seeking to exercise their First Amendment rights. As others have pointed out, it does advance the modern trend of really expanding the coverage of your anti-SLAPP statute to protect speech, not only like I'm providing today, testimony in front of a government body, but really folks exercising their First Amendment rights on issues of public interest, no matter the forum. I will leave it at that. I appreciate your time in taking up this bill, and I will hang around in case there are questions. I'm happy to answer them at the appropriate time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wolf. We have 14 other pieces of testimony on this measure in support. Is there anyone else on Zoom or in the room who would like to testify? Okay, members, are there questions? Please go right ahead, Representative Ward.
Thank you, Vice Chair. To the three testifiers, particularly the professor from the Richardson School of Law, Ms. Antonini, I believe her name is. Professor, are you
Yeah.
still there? Oh, there you are.
Yes, Rep Ward, aloha.
Aloha to you. Thank you for testifying. Are you familiar with the other one? It's not an anti-SLAPP. It's a smackdown to parents with particularly special needs kids. It's HB 2125. Are you familiar with that one?
I'm afraid
Sorry?
I'm not. I'm afraid
Okay,
I'm not
but
familiar with that.
the essence of it is this: if you are a parent and you impede or obstruct or kind of get in the way of any DOE education worker, you get a $2,000 fine or 1 year in jail. I love the bill that we're talking about, but then when I see HB 2125, it's like, it's an oxymoron. One is contradictory to the other. And I just wondered if you had an opinion or anybody who knows about HB 2125 that sailed through the House just last week.
It's not on the agenda, and I voted no on it too.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
But
There's a few of us in this committee that.
with
are
all
aware
due
of it.
respect, though, I share your feelings on it. It's not the bill on the agenda in front of the committee testifying.
I just wanted to sort of get their understanding that, hey, this is a great slapdown, but the HB 2125 is actually a takedown, as they call it in the wrestling, they call it smackdown. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Vice Chair. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. And before we moved on to the next measure, I would like to offer a very warm welcome to Representative Luella Costales in her very first GVR meeting in Komomai Legislature. And next up, we have SB 2334 SD2. And first up to testify, we have Cheryl Park in support and Catherine Payne from the Board of Education. I don't see anyone on Zoom. Is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to testify on this measure? Or in our gallery here? Nope. Okay, moving on. We don't have anyone to ask questions. Next up, SB 3252 SD2. On Zoom, we have Cheryl Park from the Office of Information Practices.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I'd like to just summarize my testimony by saying that our current rules for the fees and costs under the UIPA are like 26 years old. And back in 2017, we started looking. Oh, I didn't hear. Sorry. So in 2017, OIP started looking at revising its rules. We even had a public survey done of the rules that we proposed. 2018, we ran it past, or we submitted it to the AG's office, where it has been sitting largely in part due to the recent pandemic. So we do have some updates to our rules under proposal. This bill, however, sets a maximum cap on what can be charged. So I'm wondering why we even need to have administrative rules regarding the fees and costs under the UIPA, because if you want to set this maximum cap, it should just might as well be by statute. Now, if you are going to let us continue to administer this area through our rules, then I'd like you to please consider the unintended consequences of what you're proposing, as well as give us at least a year to update our rules to reflect these changes, seen as it's taking a long time for us to even get back the rules that we proposed to this from the AG's office. And so we just need time to work on updating our rules, and we could need more money for publication. Next year, I know our budget is going to be really tight, so we might need some publication money as well. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Park. We have Chairperson Case from the DLNR on Zoom.
Aloha, this is Pua Ayu from the Department of Land and Natural Resources, speaking on behalf of, Director Case. The department will stand on its testimony with comments. We support the information office in their needs. And we also have a concern that this bill will make, for our department, will cause us to have a whole lot more search and segregation type of requests. And that will, and we won't be adequately recompensed for it. Thank you for your time, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ayu. I don't think we have anyone else on Zoom to testify. Anyone in our gallery to testify? Please come forward. Thank you.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I am Dr. Adam Jansen, and I serve as State Archivist and Administrator of the Public Archives. And as one of the largest memory institutions in state government, putting caps and having to provide 100 pages per request is absolutely going to bury our institution. We're not that standard agency that operates. We keep everything forever, and we have 14,000 cubic feet of records. And so there are some unintended consequences in that will negatively affect and basically grind our operation to a halt. So I appreciate the consideration in that matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, does anyone have any questions for any of the testifiers? Go ahead, Representative Ward.
Is that a question? You just testify?
Oh, please come up. Sorry about that.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Brian Black, the Executive Director for the Silby Law Center for the Public Interest, and we're testifying in support of the measure. I suspect that there was testimony from agencies about how the search and review fees will lead to out of control requests. And so I wanted to comment on that and one other thing. The search and review fees, what we're talking about here is public interest waiver. So these are requests that are made in the public interest. So what is the universe of document or universe of requests that we're talking about? Statewide, states, counties, tens of thousands of requests come in. Of those, approximately 300 last year were public interest requests. So that's the universe we're talking about. And of those, the number of requests that resulted in the agency describing it as so voluminous that they needed to do incremental responses was 7. So that's the number of out of control requests that we're really talking about. And there are ways to deal with that. And that's the incremental responses, monthly responses that will push the agencies and the requesters to talk about how can we narrow this request so that timely information comes out. And then with respect to the issue of who sets the fees as OIP reference, the legislature should be setting the fees, not OIP. That's the way that we can make sure that the cost of public records is something that is affordable so that we have an informed public and not just information for the rich and for the elite. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thanks, Mr. Black. Rep. Ward?
Excuse me, Chair, Vice Chair.
Oh, Sandy Ma, would you like to testify?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I inadvertently omitted this bill and did not submit written testimony in support. Sandy Ma for Common Cause Hawaii. Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Common Cause Hawaii strongly supports SB 3252, and we provided supportive testimony during this bill's in previous iterations of this bill, and we met to provide testimony, written testimony in support of this bill to this committee. And I apologize again for not providing written testimony, and thank you for allowing me to testify orally at this time.
Thank you very much. We do have 5 other written testimonies in support, 5 additional with comments, and 1 in opposition. Representative Ward?
Thank you, Vice Chair. The archivist again. You basically said, without saying, we're going to put you out of business.
You will grind our operation to a halt because we have, along with DLNR, massive collections of land records. In our case, all the way back to the Mehele. So in the public interest, land rights, water rights is in the public interest to make sure, crown lands, those types of issues. So a massive amount of our requests that we receive on a daily basis regarding law, all the way back to Kingdom Era, and land technically fit into the public interest. What we are is the public archive. So everything we keep because it is in the public interest. Because we have all the land rights, the water rights, identity records. And so a vast majority of our requests technically would fit into that. And if word gets out, instead of coming into the public archives to do the research yourself, I foresee them submitting these requests saying, you go find it for me, you go do my research, and you return it to me up to 100 pages. I have 2 clerks and 4 archivists.
It's not the cap on the cost. It's the voluminous.
Well, it's also that 100-page waiver. Because again, any request for land or legal, and we have all the governor's records. It just the concept of public interest in our single institution. That's why we exist. We exist for the people.
Yeah, you're the keeper of the culture, basically.
We are the keepers of public memory. Yes, absolutely.
But what's your going rate now when you do that, whatever numbers?
Our going rate is at our labor costs and any additional machinery. So we are unbelievably cheap. We charge like $17 an hour for research and 25 cents a page for reproduction.
17 cents a page?
25 cents a page, $17 an hour for research.
Okay, so this one fits your quote per page. And is a page defined as a page front and back, or just the front?
Per imprint. So front and back would be 2 different pages. And again, it's the 100-page waiver that concerns us because most of our requests fit under that.
But are those requests superfluous, not worthy? I mean, are they just digging it up to make you guys harassed or what?
No. There's legitimate needs for these. They bring them into court to sue.
So how can you meet that need without going under?
More staff, which we would gladly take. Because again, we are already at maximum just with the researchers we have. If we start to get, and neighbor islands should have equal access to all of this. If their requests up to 100-page free starts coming in, we won't be able to service researchers in the research room. We won't be able to get to half the requests because we just don't have the staff.
How many copies did you make last month?
I can look that up. I can tell you the number of research requests that we've had. But again, because we have fees and we charge even for a single page, there is that kind of incentive to come in and do it yourself because you can do it for free.
What's the average size of the requests?
Average size of the requests tend to be in the 10s, 20s pages, but some of our probates our largest probate is 1,500 pages, dealing with Queen Emma and all of her disposition of her
So if
assets.
you're going to rewrite this bill, what would you do?
I would, rewriting the bill, there needs to be conditions where we can charge for those 100 pages. The waiving in this case just doesn't fit because like DLNR with the Bureau of Conveyances, we are such large repositories of memory. It's a very different issue. We only exist to serve the public.
Was that the answer?
That's the answer.
Chair, I have another question, but I'll pause until someone else does.
Mr. Jansen?
So we'll need a question.
I'm curious about what percentage of your records are digitized?
A very, very small percentage.
And so if we were to use technology and make the investment in digitizing, none of this would be an issue and you wouldn't be spending, what is your cost to store? What are you paying for space to store things that could be digitized and accessed by the public online?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer. Because we keep records of permanent value, we do not get rid of the originals. We have a custom-built facility that is only in archives. It's, if you please come and see, it's not really suited for anything else. And so, you know, that facility is there to preserve these in perpetuity, because just digitizing is only part of the equation. Keeping that digital bits alive in an authentic court submissible format in perpetuity is a very expensive proposition. So we keep the paper, but we do increase accessibility. We've digitized over the last couple of years 5 million pages of materials to put online so that people do not have to come in. We would love to expand that digitization program, but we only have 2 staff to do that.
We
And
need to invest in that.
our archival documents, you can't put through a high-speed scanner. You know, these are 100, 150-year-old documents. So they all have to be placed by hand. So it is a slow process, but we would love to do more. Absolutely.
I think that's a great way to move, to go make that investment in technology.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Jean, you had Representative Ward, Chair?
Yes, quick question for you. Archives.
Mr. Jensen?
Let's see, how many FTEs would be requested from the legislature in order to accomplish the goals of this legislation?
I would say please see HB 2449, which was already passed through the House and is currently sitting in the Senate. It's 10 positions. And that's to better serve researchers and also more quickly respond to their requests. Our current lead time is up to 3 months because we just have so many requests and only 2 clerks that pull and serve the public at the same time. So it'd be adding 2 clerks, 2 more to the digital unit, and 3 more archivists, including 1 specifically to do translations of all of our material into Olelo Hawaii, so that we can honor Article 15 of the Constitution and provide public access in the language of preference.
Okay. So you would prefer us to work on 2449?
Which is over in the Senate side right now.
Okay, that's good. And then what about Mr. Black's point of, Mr. Black's point, maybe this is not the right place to put this question about indigent, indigent people who don't have the ability to be able to pay for these large requests, which are very valid, that they need to preserve their own rights, especially in court.
Everything that's in the public archives is open to public inspection. So anyone at any time can come in and look at anything in the archives. And we have a digital imager there for them to make their own copies. So we have complete public access to all of this. They just have to come and ask. So that's the
So they
difference.
use this digital imagizer, they can do it for free and digitally image at your facility?
That is correct.
Okay, okay. All right, go ahead, Vice Chair.
You want me to keep going?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Anybody, please, Rep. Ward, help yourself.
I have a question for some of you. What are the demographics of these guys who come in and ask for piles? Are they lawyers? Are they estate attorneys? Are they anthropologists? I mean, who's storming the Bastille of your archives?
As the public archives, in order to not appear that we are providing preferential treatment to anyone, we do not ask because we do not care. If you come in, we provide you service. So we do not have solid numbers on that, but I can guesstimate based on our personal experience that a vast majority of these are public individuals that are trying to either defend their rights under the law or to question current laws that are in place. So they're defending either their land rights or their legal rights or their identity.
So you're saying attorney without saying it. Rights usually mean contested cases and they want
Correct.
evidence historically.
And not necessarily attorneys, but individuals.
So what if you just change the price higher, 50 cents a page for these guys?
The difficulty is that 100-page waiver. Because 90% of our requests fall under that. And it doesn't say per person per month, it's per request. So all they come in is they want 10 documents, they submit 10 different requests over a week time period.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You did an important job. Mr. Black, are you still here? If anybody's a big customer of records, it's yourself. You kind of, from at least what I've seen on the editorial board, you guys kind of like had pulling teeth to get information.
So just to distinguish, my organization, the Law Center, is actually a separate and independent organization from Honolulu Civil Beat, the news publication. But we do represent them on occasion, and they do have a lot of difficulty getting access. I would note that the issues that the archives are identifying, there are 2 issues going on here. One is the duplication question, the copying costs, and one is the fees. And the fees are the ones that are affected by the public interest waiver. The duplication costs, he has a valid point that it's everyone. Everyone gets free 100 pages for a request. And I would like to focus on the public interest waiver aspect of it, because that's the aspect where right now what's happening is because agencies can put out these estimates that for such large amounts, they can stop the request process in its tracks and make it so difficult that requesters are just dropping them. The duplication costs are less of a problem. It's the fees that are the big problem. And that's what's really an obstacle to public access right now.
This bill will meet that need.
Yes, and it will do it in a very narrow way by focusing on adopting the FOIA, the federal FOIA standard for what is in the public interest, and using that standard to keep it narrow and to only focus on those folks who are going to educate the public as to what it is that they find in those records. It's not everyone. It's not just because it's about water rights or something like that. They have to be taking those records and explaining to their agency why it is that what they're gonna do with it, such that it will educate the public.
As I was corrected, you are not a creation of civil beats history in the state.
That's correct. We're a separate organization from
And the
them.
name of it is?
The Civil Beat Law Center for the Public Interest. I appreciate the confusion.
Sounds pretty
It is
close
very
to
common.
me.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Like
thank you very much.
Amazon and
Mr.
Amazon
Black.
Express.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. And I just want to make sure that we do not have Major Joseph Trinidad from HPD waiting on Zoom for this measure.
Yep, I'm right here.
Oh, please go right ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. I'm Major Joseph Trinidad, Honolulu Police Department. We stand by written testimony and available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair, that is all for this measure. We'll move on to
Moving on.
SB 3282 SD1 relating to government records. We have on Zoom Chief Information Officer Doug Murdoch in opposition.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I am Doug Murdoch, the State Chief Information Officer. We submitted testimony in opposition to the bill, but we'd like to change to supporting the bill. We know that there are currently stacks and stacks of boxes full of government records taking up government office space. The purpose of this bill was to try to eliminate the problem as much as possible by first providing state archives with resources to help departments and agencies move those boxes to the State Records Center in Puna. And second, to create a centralized approach to electronic record systems to reduce the number of paper records created or stored in the first place. So when the bill went through the Senate committee, it lost some resources for archives to get boxes out of the offices, and made all of the separate departments the expending agencies under Part 3, Section 3 in the definition. So our recommendation is to pass this bill with an addition for resources for the archives and changing the expending agency to OETS so we can have a centralized system that hopefully will reduce the costs of the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up on Zoom, we have Dr. Adam Jansen from DAGS. You're in person.
I defer to Comptroller Kurt Otaguro.
Thank you. Next up, Kurt Otaguro, Comptroller from Department of Accounting and General Services.
Yes, good morning, Vice Chair Wildberger, Chair McKelvey, and members of the committee. Kurt Otaguro, State Archivist. I think Doug Murdoch Garcia said it pretty quickly and concisely. While we appreciate the intent to digitize, we respectfully request modification to the language in SB 3282 SD1 because of some errors that occurred during the WAM review. Basically, we're trying to accomplish three things, right? We're trying to digitize document storage for relocation purposes and retention from paper to electronic. And really, that's going to save us office space. There's another initiative to reduce office leases to get state operations into state facilities. So just taking boxes that are being stored in offices and digitizing them and transporting them from their office to archives is one initiative. The second one, obviously, is as Dr. Jansen previously said, streamlining from paper to digitize also is going to support our efforts for workflow automation. So the legislature has graciously approved other projects like the financial management modernization. So having a digitized document in that workflow as we approve and process is going to be greatly more efficient. And the third, as Dr. Jansen said, historic preservation is obviously of utmost importance. And so we're requesting, as CIO Murdoch said, change in consideration to put back, inserting the language from the original contents of SB 3282 as introduced for this archivist positions. And that's really positions to do the transport, really. That's what it is, not the 10 positions that Dr. Johnson said before to expand the digitization efforts for archives, just to move the boxes from the neighbor islands as well. So that's part of the challenge that we have. There's no transport mechanism to move documents statewide. And the second, as CIO said, consolidate the ETS, expanding agency to be ETS. And really it's for standardization. So if the committee takes one thing under consideration, what the state needs is a standardized indexing method for reference, because once we digitize, we're going to have to find the documents. If we don't have a standardized indexing that the ETS can manage and control, it's going to be we'll digitize it, but we may have a hard time operation to find documents. So that's the purpose of consolidating and having ETS be the expending agency. So we're happy to answer any questions, Vice Chair. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I think it's important to give you the resources you need to do this. It's going to be a heavy lift, but we'll be way better off after. And centralization, I think, is super important instead of having disparate departments trying to manage all the data. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, moving on to yes.
I did have a question
Please go ahead.
to the gentleman who just spoke, actually. The question is, from a national perspective, are we on par, behind, ahead of the digitization and the keeping of the records according to the highest professional standards that you referred to?
That's a very good question, Representative Ward. I would say that the state is probably on par, thanks to the efforts of different agencies over the years, including state archives. They have taken that the 2-year time during the pandemic, really more digitization. However, I would say and you have two perspectives, Representative. You have an operational component for documents so that we continue to work our state operations. I would say that we're behind. We're absolutely behind because of the paper-based systems that we currently deploy and conversion of paper to electronic. Certain departments are way ahead, like the Department of Transportation Highways has already gone almost exclusively digitized documentation, but they get slowed up because other agencies like my own in DAGS would still require some paper documents. So operationally, I would say we're behind. From an archivist perspective, I think we can do a lot more. Dr. Jansen has moved the needle a lot. You would be impressed as to what his operation is today, but there's many more documents, obviously, that needs to be done.
So this bill would give us a better billing, in maybe in the top 10, 20 in the nation. It would give us a bump, basically.
I couldn't say that. I may have deferred to Dr. Jansen, who's in person there, if he has any further comment.
If I may.
Please.
We're gonna be the best in the nation with this bill, right?
Thank you. To place it into context, my PhD is in archives. I'm a certified document imaging architect, and I manage the largest imaging operation in the state of Washington. So I totally nerd out on this stuff. I love records.
This is gonna be what enough.
You have no idea. So operationally, as the comptroller stated, we are behind the wheel because the management aspect, we're digitizing lots, but when to get rid of it and having a centralized repository to be able to find, and then as soon as it meets its legal retention, destroy it. So we're not keeping all this digital data forever. And I would just point to your email, for instance. Everybody either pitches it right away or keeps it forever. This bill would actually put us definitely in the top 10 because amongst my state archives peers, there are very few states that have a centralized, cohesive system for digitization and storage with that management component. It's the Wild West. Every agency kind of does their own thing, and then that company goes out of business and they got all these documents that they don't know what to do with. So this is definitely innovative. And in case you can't tell, I'm super stoked about this because it gives us the opportunity to short-term paper records, move them to the State Record Center, which is different than the public archives. The building across the street's for permanent. Mapuna Puna has a huge Raiders of the Lost Ark style repository for those things that you're only keeping because you're legally required in case you're audited or sued and you have to keep it for 4, 6, 10 years, but you never touch. That's what that's suited for. So this way we have that hybrid approach for those short-term 2 to 4, 6-year records we put in cold storage. And those things that you have high access, you have to keep for 20, 40, 80 years, we can digitize so they're very quickly accessible.
Thank you. I like your enthusiasm and calling yourself a nerd, meaning you're going to excel to with the best in the nation.
Absolutely. You give me the tools and we will show you something that no other state's seen before.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, moving on to SB 3369 relating to procurement. We have Bonnie.
Oh, wait, sorry. So sorry, I was gonna ask a quick question.
Oh, please.
I got sidetracked over here. I don't know who this is for, so I'll pick on Doug. Because he's a blue team guy and I like to pick on blue team guys. So, but anybody can jump in. One of the methods of funding the bill calls for is the American Rescue Plan. And is there going to be a problem insofar as expending those federal funds for this purpose? Because it may not fit into one of the areas in which the ARP funds are made available to the states for. Anybody? Doug, Comptroller, Digitizer Supreme? No?
We'll have to check with Budget and Finance to get a final review of that. But I think the methods of financing were chosen by Ways and Means staff, so I think it'll be all right.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Appreciate the feedback on it. Okay, go ahead, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Moving on, SB 3369 SD2 relating to procurement. We have Bonnie Kahakui here from the State Procurement Office. And we have Kathy Betts, Director of Human Services, State of Hawaii, with comments, requesting an amendment, and Craig Harai from Budget and Finance. That is all we have. Anyone on Zoom wish to testify on this measure? Anyone else in the room? Members, questions?
Quick question,
Go right ahead.
Department of Education. Yui, are they here?
I
No,
don't think they're here.
they're not here. Okay, well then obviously I can't ask the question.
Okay, then we will proceed to our next bill, SB 2335 SD2, also related to procurement, and we have Bonnie Kahakui in person in opposition.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Bonnie Falcone again. We stand on our written testimony in opposition. We just wanted to point out that if this bill is enacted, it will increase the cost to the state. There is no incentive for vendors to provide their best rate to the state. And there is no determination where the median would be if there's only 2 vendors proposing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Keith Hayashi, the interim superintendent from the DOE in support. We have Andrew Kawano from the City and County Budget and Finance in opposition, and Ryan Sakuda from General Contractors Association of Hawaii also in opposition. Does anyone else want to testify, or I've got somebody on Zoom?
Oh, yes. Hi, this is Jeremy Koki, Aloha Chair McKelvey, Vice Chair Wildberger, members of the committee. Jeremy Koki here for the Office of Facilities and Operations, testifying on behalf of the Hawaii State Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. This bill provides options and encourages contractors to submit fair and reasonable pricing due to the selection of the median bid. And thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Koki. Do we have any questions from members?
Yes.
Please go ahead, Chair.
Okay, Department of Education.
Mr. Koki.
Mr. Koki, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
I just want you to give some feedback on the previous testimony offered that this would actually drive up the cost of projects and be a disincentive for bidders to supply the best possible bid to the state.
I think it would, going back to the testimony, so this would, we've experienced where, in some instances, right, receiving lowball bids, right, which then results in a series of having change orders. So I'm sorry, did I answer your question?
You kind of did, but think though, we do have another bill on change orders. It's coming up later. Wouldn't that be a
Okay.
better way to focus those concerns?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
then I can get back to you.
Oh, yeah, let's
Okay.
do that. That'd be great. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you.
I'm curious if Bonnie would like to react or respond to that testimony, talking about low bids and change orders.
In terms of low bid, we believe that it's the agency's responsibility, if they're going to get a bid and accept the bid and hold those contractors accountable for those costs. And if there's any change orders, then it should be their determination whether it was within the bid and hold them to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Go right ahead.
May I follow up?
Yes.
What is your estimate on the cost increase that you suggested would be a result of this bill?
You know, I really don't.
10% more, 5% more?
I really don't have.
No,
a
no
clue on
idea,
that.
but
No.
you're definitely sure that it's gonna go up.
Well, when you're choosing a median bid, you're not choosing, okay, so the statute said you're supposed to be the responsive, lowest bidder. So based on that, you're intending that the bid that they're offering is fair and accurate.
That's the rules right
Agencies-
now, right?
That's correct.
Most responsible, lowest bid.
Right, correct. And so it's still up to the agency to make that determination. If they feel that this bid is, the bid was they calling a low bid, then perhaps they should have done a little more homework in qualifying these people or these bidders, that they're actually qualified to do the job. And is their bid fair and reasonable? If it is not reasonable, then they should make a determination that they are not awarded contract.
Is this part of a bigger, is the procurement process broken, or this is just tinkering around some of the things of cost related?
I think it's more tinkering around. You know, it's up to the agencies. I mean, the statute says reasonable, responsible, technically acceptable bidder. So it's somewhere along the line, if they've already determined that this bidder that they believe is low bid, then maybe they're not technically acceptable.
So this bill will say, don't go low bid because you're gonna lose. You gotta be medium bid. So you're
Exactly.
probably likely gonna up it a bit.
Absolutely.
Okay,
There's
I
no
see the logic.
incentive.
Okay, the psychology of it's right there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Chair?
Go ahead.
All set?
Yep.
Okay.
Moving on.
Next up, we have SB 3372 relating to procurement, and we have Bonnie Kahakui again from the State Procurement Office in person with amendments.
Yes, thank you again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Our comments is not the intent to change any language, just to provide clarifying language within the statute. Thank you.
Thank you. In opposition, we have Andrew Kawano. We have Nan Shin from Nan Inc. in support, and Ryan Sakudo, General Contractors Association of Hawaii in opposition. Do we have anyone else in person or on Zoom to testify on this measure? Any questions, members? All right, we'll move right along to SB 2387. Also relating to procurement. And we have Bonnie Kahakui again to testify in person with amendments requested with comments.
I should just stay up here.
Right.
Thank you for the opportunity. We're just providing clarification language that would provide more clarity and scope. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Andrew Kawanu from the City and County of Honolulu Budget Fiscal Services in support. We have Jade Boutte, DOT Director on Zoom for this measure. Oh, no, sorry, that's the next one. Pardon me. That is all we have. Members, do we have any questions for 2387? Seeing none, we'll continue right ahead to SB 3350 SD2. Also relating to procurement. We have Jade Boutte from the DOT on Zoom, I think.
Hello, Chair McKelvey, David Rodriguez, and Vice Chair Wildberg, David Rodriguez with the Department of Transportation. We stand on testimony support. And we would like to testify on Senate Bill 2385. We did not get a Zoom approval for that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we'll call you up for that one. We have Jennifer Trupalik for this measure in support as well. Do we have anyone else who'd like to testify on 3350? Any questions from members? Okay, thank you, Chair. We're going to move right along to SB 2385, SD2 relating to procurement. We have Bonnie Kahakui here with us as the procurement office in support. Thank you very much. Reiko Matsuyama, the Director of Finance for the County of Kauai in support. Derek Mukai of the American Council of Engineering Companies of Hawaii on Zoom.
Yes, I'm here. I can't start my video for some reason. This is Sandy Wong. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead, Sandy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I can't start my video for some reason. They said the host is blocking me. So anyway, this is Sandy Wong on behalf of the American Council of Engineering Companies. We have submitted comments. We do have concerns with the language. We have been working with the stakeholders, specifically Department of Transportation. So we thank them for their collaboration, but we do think that there needs to be a few more tweaks in this language. And so we would like to continue working with the other stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. We have Reed Mizue in opposition on Zoom from the AIA Hawaii State Council.
Hi, Reed Mizue here. Same here. I'm unable to start my video. But Reed Mizue, AIA Hawaii State Council, representing architect members. I got the AIA Hawaii State Council stands on its opposition, strongly opposed to SB 2385 SD2, primarily based on lack of information from state agencies requesting that why this language changes need to occur to QBS law that's been in place to deter public corruption. And I think that that's something very important in this day and age to keep in mind, that QBS law is very important. And finagling around with the language may create the potential for that corruption to occur by lessening the amount of qualified people on RFQs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have the DOT waiting to testify on this measure.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wildberger, Chair McKelvey, David Rogers of the Department of Transportation. We submitted very late testimony, revised, in strong support of this bill. And I hope you have a copy of that. But for the record, we strongly support this bill. We appreciate the exemption. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we have Reiko Matsuyama, the Director of in support. I think I said her already. My apologies. And that's it. Do we have anybody else on Zoom to testify on 2385 or in our room here in person? No questions from members? Okay, moving on to SB 3039 SD1 relating to purchase of health and human services. We have Bonnie Kahakui here in person. Thank you very much. We have Kathy Betts, Department of Human Services in support. We have Alan Johnson in opposition from the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition, and Lisa Moriyama with comments from Hawaii Alliance of Nonprofit Organizations. Members, do we have any questions? Okay, moving on to SB 2726 SD2 relating to parking concessions. We have the Department of Land and Natural Resources on Zoom in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Megan Stats, I'm the Assistant Administrator for the Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation. The department stands in strong support of this measure with just one minor amendment, and I'm here for any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you, Megan. We have Todd Tashima from the DLNR perhaps also indicating on Zoom.
Yeah, he's with us. Apologies.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Any questions for Megan Stats regarding this bill? Go right ahead, Chair.
Megan, you still there?
Yes, I am, Rep. McKelvey.
I understand the concerns or the issues why DLNR is trying to pass this, but if you can't find receive any suitable bids for parking concessions, why can't you just use sole source designation? We've heard the House version on this before, and this issue came up on that one. Why do you need a flat out exemption completely from using the bidding process for parking concessions? Because my concern is, to be honest with you, it creates a lot of transparency issues, especially with the users who are often burdened with the fees for the particular vendor. And to just get a flat out exemption across the board without even trying sole source or another avenue seems a little concerning.
So that's a good question, Representative. Thank you. We are not trying to do anything regarding sole source. What we're trying is, it's kind of a hybrid in between so what we've done basically, so you kind of understand, is we have gotten our own pay stations. So the state is in control of these pay stations. So the funding specifically comes directly to the Boating Special Fund. And then what we hire the vendor for is to oversee the pay stations as well as collect the permit parking fees through other means. So it's not really about getting sole source. We have a number of vendors that are interested in doing this particular type of concession. It's just that it's kind of a hybrid. So it's not under 103, it's not under 102. So we're just trying to find something that would work to allow us to do somewhat of this hybrid. And ultimately, the approval of this still has to go through the Board of Land and Natural Resources. So we wouldn't be using sole source. We want to be able to have the different vendors be able to do it, but just the ability to be in more control, and it's more advantageous to the state to have the money go directly to our Boating Special Fund and not necessarily to the vendor to collect.
Okay, but I don't see how, I mean, this is the mark in my mind, because this is a flat out exemption. I mean, if you have multiple vendors who want to bid for the service, then why not use the bidding process? How the money flows, I think, would be handled in a different way. But, you know, to just basically create a flat out exemption, I don't see how that solves the problem.
I think for us is we've tried to do it through 102 and we're not able to do it that way. So that's why we're looking for either an exemption. And again, we're not trying to in any way, shape or form try to skirt procurement processes. We still want to go through that. But the way that we're doing it with having the state own the pay stations and having the vendor just collect money separately does not fall under 103 or 102. So we're stuck in between this situation of we can't necessarily do this. And then we're going to get pigeonholed into doing a parking concession similar to what happened at the Alawai, where the pay stations were owned by the vendor. And when the vendor was like, you know, hey, COVID happened, we're taking our pay stations and we're leaving. And so we were stuck for a number of months without having these pay stations. So we lost revenue for probably 9 months to 11 months of just parking over at the Alawai. This would actually help us in just, again, like I said, just creating somewhat of a hybrid and still go through the process, like we said, and then have the board do the final approval.
Okay, well, perhaps working together, we can come up with a more narrow, focused way of addressing it. But thank you for being here and answering my questions.
Thank you, Rep. McKelvey.
Chair.
Anybody else? Go right ahead.
Following, Megan, first, thank you for all you do for Honolulu Bay and all that you will be doing to keep our East Honolulu Harbor working well. Following up Representative McCulvey's question, I thought I was clear. Now I'm a little bit confused. Is this a public-private partnership you call a hybrid in that you need somebody to, it sounds like a meter maid for your facilities. You're looking for personnel, not necessarily vendors, or is there a lack of parking lot entrepreneurs in this state? What it's confusing as to what you're. Well, okay, here's the bottom line. Are you going to increase the LNR's revenue with this plan that is in this bill, or are you going to decrease it, or as it stays neutral? Are you there?
I am Rep. Ward. I think it is definitely more advantageous to the state in this way that we're trying to do it is we own the pay stations. The state owns the pay station. So if a vendor leaves for whatever reason, we can still continue to generate the funds because they're still going to come through the pay stations electronically and come into our voting special fund. What we need the vendor for is to deal with the collection of the permit parking, and I'm using Alawai as an example, the permit parking fees from our tenants so that our staff doesn't have to do that. And what the vendor does is if somebody needs to be towed or there's an issue with homeless in vehicles, they basically oversee it, and they oversee it 24/7. We just don't have the staffing to be doing that. So that's really what the vendor is. And frankly, there are a lot of vendors throughout the state and even on the neighbor islands that are willing to do this type of hybrid situation with parking.
How many parking lots do you have?
We have we have a lot of parking in our facilities, but we have Alawai has a vendor. We have Ma'alaya and Lahaina.
Wouldn't it be easier just to have a staffer collecting? It sounds like a money collection operation, not a sophisticated procurement. And when you get procurement with exceptions like this, it doesn't pass the smell test, so to speak. Anytime you get an exemption, it's like, oh my God, there's something awry or will go awry if we allow those exemptions.
Understood. It's not just about that because it's the vendor that's there and the vendor is there 24/7. The vendor is also there to assist if there's any kind of working with a tow company as well. And again, like, we're not looking to skirt any kind of procurement rules or regulations. Any agreement or approval that we're looking to get still has to go through the Board of Land and Natural Resources for approval. This is not something that DOBOR can do by itself. We are not the final approver.
But the business we're in, perception is reality, unfortunately. And
understand. Thank you.
One of the difficulties. Thank you, Megan, for all you do. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Anyone else? All right. We have one last bill, SB 3040 SD2 relating to procurement. We have Bonnie Kahakui here.
Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Bonnie Kahakui. I just wanted to summarize. We strongly support this bill. This bill will allow the State Procurement Office to engage in a full cycle e-procurement system in a self-funded model without any kinds of appropriation from the legislature. Thank you. I'll be available for questions.
Thank you very much. We have Daintry Bartolus in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair, Chair, committee members. Daintry Bartolus, Executive Administrator for the Hawaii State Council on Developmental Disabilities. I apologize. We're in strong support of this measure, but I made a mistake on the last paragraph. I quoted the original bill. We're in strong support of the areas on page 7, lines 17, 18 through 20, and on page 8, lines 1 through 3. I apologize for that. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present testimony and support.
Thank you so much. We have Budget and Finance with comments and Lisa Muriyama in opposition with an amendment request. Is anyone else here on Zoom or in person to testify? Thank you. Members, do you have any questions on this measure? Well, that's it. Thank you very much. We can recess.
Members, what we're going to do is we're going to recess for decision making, but as you can see by our agenda, we got a lot of bills and there's some, given the testimony, there's some things we want to do. So with your indulgence, we'd like to reconvene here at 11:30 the decision making on the bills. 11:15 then, how's that? Good, okay, we just want to make sure, because it's a triple referral, we have a deadline to meet, but we want to make sure we can incorporate some of the things that have coming up in testimony during the hearing, so we don't miss anything. So with everybody's indulgence, 11:15, I promise we'll make it quick and 50. Okay, recess to 11:15. Okay, thank you, everybody, and welcome back. I'll make this fast as I can. Just bear with me here. Senate Bill 3164, SD1, recommendation is a House Draft 1 to keep it moving along to the other committees. So a defective date of 21/12 to create a House draft for conference. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 3164, House Draft 1.
Your recommendation to pass SB 3164 SD1 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Representative Costales? Aye. Representative Eli? Aye. Representative Ichiyama is excused. Representative Mizuno is excused. Representative Woodson is excused. Representative Yamashita? Aye. Representative Ward? Excused. Thank you, Chair. Your measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. SB 2300, while we normally put a effective date and measures for a House draft for purposes of potential conference and due deference to my Auntie Donna and her hard work, recommendation is as is. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, as is.
Thank you, Chair. SB 2300 as is. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye, noting the excused absences for the rest of this decision-making, Representative Ichiyama, Mizuno, Woodson, and Ward. Does anyone have any?
I'm
no
here.
or- Oh, who, is that Linda? I
Yeah,
can't see.
she's allowed to zoom in. for the vote.
Okay, Linda is here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Ichiyama? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any no or reservations from members in the room? Thank you, Chair. Your measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Senate Bill 2044, members, the House version crossed first. So in lieu of that, we're going to defer this one for the rest of the session. Next up, Senate Bill 2043, housekeeping measure. So recommendation is as is. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, as is.
Thank you, Chair. Measure SB 2043 as is. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Are there any no or reservations? Thank you, Chair. Your measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Senate Bill 3244, Senate Draft 1. We're very sympathetic to the prisoner issue that was raised by Common Cause. However, that needs to be dealt with specifically in its own measure. So given that, that's something for the next legislature to consider. We're going to defer this one. Next up, Senate Bill 3254, Senate Draft 1. Making amendments to the Constitution regarding reapportionment, given the concerns to the neighbor islanders, especially the Big Island, and the fact that it could change map lines and conceivably trigger lawsuits, which would not only delay papers, but also upend the voter guide bills we have going forward. We're going to defer this measure for the year. Next up, Senate Bill 2210, Senate Draft 2, relating to elections. We're going to add an appropriation that requires matching county funds. And we're going to add tech amendments for clarity, consistency, and style, and there already is a defective date in it. Questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 2210 HD1.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass SB 2210 SD2 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Are there any no or reservations in the room or on Zoom? Thank you, Chair. Your measure is adopted.
Okay, Senate Bill 3226.
Oh, welcome.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Senate Bill 3226, Senate Draft 2. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. I believe there already is a defective date in the measure. And in the committee report, we're going to have finance recommend amount of $95,000 for an appropriation. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 3226 HD1.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass SB 3226 SD2 with amendments, noting the arrival of Representative Ward and Representative Woodson. Are there
3226.
any no votes or reservation votes on this measure? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, Senate Bill 312.
I was also present for the last vote.
I'll fix that one.
Always like you, my brother.
You're not waiting on me, are you?
Nope, can we go? Okay.
Yeah.
Next up, Senate Bill 312, Senate Draft 1. Members, my good friend, the mayor of Kauai likes to say, either go big or go home. So given that, we want to actually hopefully trigger another review of the United States Supreme Court on Citizens United. And to do that, we are going to remove all symbolic references from the measure. And we're going to delete page 2, lines 14 through 16, sentence regarding binding effect, as well as technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, vote your conscience. House Draft 1.
Thank you, Chair. SB 312, SD1 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye, noting the only member absent, Representative Mizuno. Are there any no or reservation votes in the room?
Chair, I was half joking when I said take off symbolic, so with reservations,
Sound good?
but it's going on.
Reservations
moving
for
on.
Representative Ward. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Senate Bill 2138, Senate Draft 1. We are going to do technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style, and we're going to add an effective date of 21/12. Questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, HD1.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass SB 2138 SD1 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Are there any no or reservation votes? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Senate Bill 3329, Senate Draft 1. We're going to add our own defective date to create a House Draft 1 to ensure the measure goes to conference. And we're going to also add technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 3329 HD1.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass SB 3229 SD1 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any reservations or no's in the room? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you so much. 2334 SD2 relating to the Board of Education. We are going to add a defective date to the measure, technical amendments for clarity and consistency and style. And we're also going to adopt BOE's testimony to not limit it to community forums to less than quorum of board members in order to create much opportunity for sunshine. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 2334 HD1.
Your recommendation to pass SB 2334 SD2 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any no or reservations in the room? On Zoom. Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, 3252, Senate Draft 2. This is truly a work in progress. There was a lot of great testimony on this and issues that were raised. We'd like to keep this thing going in order to ensure we can discuss the issues further, potentially with the Senate. So to address the concerns raised, we're going to remove the 100-page waiver fee, and we're going to put a cap only on digital record search and segregation, which should be easier for them to accomplish. And in the committee report, we're going to ask the Committee on Finance, should they choose to hear this measure, to fund the recommended 10 FTEs for state archives, as was indicated in testimony. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 3252 HD1.
Thank you, Chair. Recommendation to pass SB 3252 SD2 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any no or reservations in the room or on Zoom? Thank you. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. 3282, Senate Draft 1. We appreciate the testimony again of the stakeholders on this. Some of the recommended testimony, however, is not in the purview of this committee, but we're going to put that in the committee report. We're going to replace Part 3 with Section 3 of the original bill with blank amounts. We're going to go ahead and make ETS and not DAGS the expending agency for all parts. A defective date of 21/12, and as noted earlier, we're going to have finance look at funding the 2 FTE positions that was raised in testimony, and funding for Section 3 as well for them to look at on the Finance Committee. Members, questions, comments? If not, 3282 HD1.
Thank you, Chair. Recommendation to pass SB 3282 SD1 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any no's or reservations in the room or on Zoom? Thank you. Your measure recommendations adopted.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Senate Bill 3369, Senate Draft 2. Too bad Department of Education wasn't here because there's a lot of concerns of teachers and DOE employees, staff using the HEP system and the problems it concerns. And so given that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove Department of Education from the measure and have the next committees look at that issue more closely. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 3369, House Draft 1.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass SB 3369 SD2 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any no's in the room or reservations, Zoom or the room? Thank you. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. 2335, Senate Draft 2. With all due respect to the author, given the concerns that were raised by SBU on the effect this would have, we're going to defer this measure. Next up, Senate Bill 3372, Senate Draft 1, relating to public procurement. Recommendation is a House Draft 1. We're going to add our own defective date of 2112, and we're going to do technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, questions, comments? If not, 3372, House Draft 1.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass 3372 ST1 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any no or reservations on Zoom or in the room? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, Senate Bill 3373, Senate Draft 2. Recommendation is we add our own defective date to create a House draft for the purposes of conference to further the discussion of the measure. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, House Draft 1, 3373.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass SB 3373 ST2 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any noes or reservations on Zoom or in the room? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, Senate Bill 2387, recommendation is a House Draft 1. We're going to change or to and on page 2, line 15, which is the publication section of the measure. It has a defective date already, so we're going to look at that issue as it moves on to the other committees. Questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 2387, House Draft 1.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass 2387 ST1 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any noes or reservations on Zoom or in the room? Thank you. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, everybody. Senate Bill 3350, Senate Draft 2. We are going to create a House Draft 1. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to, on page 6, we're going to delete lines 8 and 9 and move it on for further consideration by the next committee. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Chair,
Yes.
question. The intent of it still remains the same. If
Yes.
it's about that, okay.
Yes, that's okay. Go ahead.
Recommendation to pass SB 3350 ST2 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any noes or reservations on Zoom or in the room? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, Senate Bill 2385, Senate Draft 2. Members, what we're going to do is we're going to reflect the House position that was passed out in the previous measure. We're going to insert into page 2, line 5, if less than 3 qualified persons respond to a solicitation, the agency may submit a request for alternative procurement approval from the chief procurement officer or their designee. And we're also going to make tech amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. There's questions.
So no exemption.
Yeah, no exemption.
Good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, anybody else? If not, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass SB 2385 ST2 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any noes or reservations on Zoom or in the room? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Senate Bill 3039 relating to purchases of health and human services. Members, the committee that was next in line to hear this version never heard the House version. So given that, we're going to defer this measure for the year. Next up, Senate Bill 2726 SD2. This is the parking concessions bill. I still believe that this could be handled much more exactly than what is being proposed in the measure. However, in order to give us time to be able to work with DLNR and others on trying to address their concerns without giving them a blanket exemption, we're going to put a defective date of 2112 into the measure to create a House draft. We're also in the committee report going to ask that should this measure go to conference, that water and land be added to the conference chairs. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
So,
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry. So there's not an exemption then with this one either.
There is for now, but we want to address this issue more concisely than the exemption. However, it's a triple referral. In order to keep the bill alive to do that, we got to move it along. So we're going to put a defective date of 2112 in there, make sure it goes to conference. And then, like I said, we'd like to have water land in on the conference committee potentially, should it go there. So
I'll meet with reservations.
sounds good. I feel you 100%. I would make the recommend vote myself the same way. Okay, go ahead, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass SB 2726 SD2 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye, noting Representative Ward's reservations. Are there any more reservations or no's in the room or on Zoom? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
And finally, Senate Bill 3040, Senate Draft 2. We're going to go ahead and we're going to make tech amendments to the measure. And I believe it already has a defective date in there. So, so given that, that'll be recommendations for a House Draft 1 is to simply make tech amendments. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair 3040.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass SB 3040 ST2 with amendments, Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any noes or reservations in the room or
I
on
have some
Zoom? Reservations for you, Representative Ward? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation. is
Okay, thank you,
adopted.
members. Appreciate your support.